even if the thing that you're working on, is going to take a little bit of time, you start putting it in, saying now, because your subconscious hears that and then starts to work its way so you can make that manifest in the now as soon as possible.
What I just thought about is like, even if it's a 2-year project, a 2-year project has 2 years worth of nows. Our guest today is the founder of the Champion, your inner game peak performance system that has helped many business leaders, professionals, elite athletes, and individuals around the globe who used his system to quickly transform fears, doubts, worries permanently, creating more confidence, success, pleasure, and joy. He understands people's pain and challenges because he's done this, he's lived through this himself, his life challenges. He's been littered with difficulties throughout his life, and he has transformed his own life out of a depression state into abundance. Welcome to the show, best-selling and award-winning author, and also a graduate of Berklee College of Music, Cary Valentine.
Aloha, Mike. It is awesome to be here, and thank you so much for that wonderful intro. It's an honor for me to be here with you today.
I had to shorten your bio, and it's an honor to have you here, by the way. I had to shorten that up a little bit because I know people, they don't want to hear me talk. They want to get to you. And by the way, folks, he says aloha, and you're like, that's a little different. Well, no, Cary's in Hawaii right now as we're recording. And don't be fooled if you're watching this on YouTube. Yes, he has the backdrop behind him, but if you turn the camera around, you'd actually see, you'd see the ocean. It's right there in front of him. So I hope we're going to do a part 2, and we're going to do it live. We're going to do it right sitting on the beach. How's that sound?
Cabana boy, come here.
What island are you on? That's all I need to know is, my helicopter. Where am I landing? Am I on Maui? Where are we going?
Drop it in Maui, baby.
Sounds good, brother. Want to give a shout out to Patricia Love, a mutual friend of ours. She's been on the show a couple times. Amazing woman. And she connected the two of us. And I knew that there's going to be magic here. And anyone who's tuning in for the first time, maybe you're familiar with Cary. Thank you for being with us, whether you're listening in on audio or tuning in on YouTube. Appreciate you doing that. Like, subscribe, connect to the show. We love having you. And then if you're coming in because you love the show and if you never met Cary before, we're actually going to take you through his story. I kind of teased it a little bit in the intro, and I had the opportunity to actually meet Cary a couple of weeks ago. So, brother, when you shared your story with me, man, the hair on my arms is standing up because I understood, some of the pains you went through. I had some similar, we had a lot of things in common. It felt like you were almost like punking me. Like you start talking about how you were a drummer and you had some things where you kind of came out of your shell a little later in life. I'm like, is he just playing with me here? So we have a lot of common things. Take us to the early days, though, when you were a little bit more shy, right? You went to a music school where there's probably a lot of cool personalities and a lot of great people around you. And that's kind of the age when you started to come out of your shell. But that's a huge transition. So can you talk through some of the early struggles that you had personally, and then how you eventually got out of that, and even take us into what you learned about yourself into what you can do today? I know that's a lot. So floor is yours, brother.
For sure. I appreciate that, Mike. And, I'd be so delighted to share because, what I'm doing today from where I was years ago, like, coaching elite athletes, professionals and amateurs and, business folks. And all of this is just, doing audiobooks and performing around the world. You would never have thought that based on where I came from. And to kind of kick it off, when I was a kid, I barely spoke. I mumbled. That was like the best that you can get out of me. And I think that why that was, it was a factor of a number of things. Certainly, dealing with my parents, being with my parents in their home, and the kind of challenging relationship that they had. Me being a sensitive kid, picking up on that kind of yelling, screaming, fighting all the time, affected me. Plus, I think the innate nature of who I am, how I'm wired neurologically as a creative person. And I come across this all the time with creative people too, that this seems like the more creative you are, whether you're like Kobe Bryant in that for that matter, or a dentist or a musician or entrepreneur, that when you're using your own creativity, the doubts kind of challenge you more. And I'll get into why that is. So, what I will share with you then is going to probably turn your mind inside out because it's amazing. Yeah.
Cary, did you have siblings or like other people that kind of, did they recognize the fact that you were a little bit more shy? Obviously, if your parents are either, going through something and they're kind of like in the moment, you can kind of be pulled away from it, or you're like, you don't want to get in the middle of it. But sometimes when you have siblings, you can kind of like collectively go and hang out with your brother or sister or something. Did you have that, or there was no real outlet to kind of escape with other people?
Great question, Mike. Yes, I do have three other brothers. Today, I have great relationships with them all. I'm particularly thinking of my brother Larry. He and I were pretty close in age. He is a younger brother. I wasn't the best brother to him, and he wasn't the best brother to me when we were younger, but that's typical of siblings who are really close in age.
Where are you
Um,
at in the on the totem pole of the four brothers?
I'm in the middle. I'm
Okay.
3 out of 4.
Okay.
And if any of you guys, old school growing up, dad gets pissed off at us and go, "Hey, number 3, get down here,"
Yeah.
get soap in the mouth and things like that, or
Yeah.
whatever is punishment in those days. So in that point, it's a great question. No, I didn't have anyone I could go connect with. Um, Part of that is, I would say, candidly, my own level of not being transparent at that time. But you got to consider too, we're talking preteen, early teens, growing up around New York City. You got to be cool, right? And that was at least for me. I was basically, I was aware of the doubts, but I, talked to people, but no one no one I had met at that point could even kind of hear me,
Hmm.
even could relate, especially, back then. This is, quite a number of years ago when emotional health was not the topic of discussion as it is become today, which I'm
Hmm.
grateful for, for
It
that.
was it was really seen as a weakness and almost an embarrassment to seek help. And as a kid, if you're, whoever's whether it's parents or teachers or mentors, if you even were, lucky enough to have somebody in the school system that kind of helped you through some of this stuff, were able to help you, it was always looked at as like there's a problem, opposed to, we're gonna get the best out of Cary. It was always like, what's wrong with Cary? Yeah, I know. And look, I'm old school. I grew up old school Italian too, so a lot of things just weren't talked about. Or if you're having a bad time, you couldn't really go to your parents and be like, "I need help." You just kind of had to eat it a little bit, and you don't realize stuff until you into your later teens or 20s and stuff. And that's not a knock on my parents, but it's just they did the best they could and what they knew to do. And I think a lot of people grow up
Definitely.
in that with that understanding. So walk us through it. So how did you eventually start to break out of that shell?
Might be a funny answer, but it's true. Turning like 13, uh, Robin Williams
Hmm.
and puberty.
Okay.
um, the humor of Robin Williams at that time, he was just kind of really launching his stand up career. I just really gravitated to his humor and his heart. It was just evident to me of how brilliant he was. And even then, how caring he was as a person, which I didn't have any kind of real way to know that at that point. But I can, I think I sensed it. And then, puberty kind of just brought me out. It actually, I went the other extreme, Mike. Then I was the wise guy. You couldn't shut me up. But then I asked the same question: Where's Cary? You asked earlier about, like, me going to Berklee College of Music, and just to kind of go a little bit further in the timeline. I was gifted in the sense of I started playing music pretty early.
Did you have someone in your family who was an influence for you in music? Where did that come from?
Great question. Yes, my mom really supported us, and obviously my dad too in that way. But she was really a proponent for the kids to take lessons. So my oldest brother took piano, wasn't really good at it. My brother older than me, was a trumpet player. Dude kicked butt, never practiced, always amazing. And then I came along and just was I don't know why I want to play drums,
Hmm.
and kind of quickly moved up. I was playing in the school system. And like when I was in middle school, the high school, kind of grabbed me to play in the marching band. And, I had special kind of busing to get over to the high school and all that. And then like 15, I was playing already professionally with the members of the band who are in their 30s, and
Right.
I'm like a 15-year-old kid, and I have to, hand it to my mom who took me to that audition, and she was cool. Like she just let it happen, and from there I was performing 2-3 nights a week.
What kind of
it,
music were you guys doing?
yeah, we were playing kind of the top hits. Like I wouldn't say top 40, but I would say rock and roll, like Led Zeppelin and
Wow.
and
Okay.
Cream and things like that, mixed in with like
Yeah.
Pat Benatar and kind of a mix of things.
Dude,
And
playing Zeppelin and Cream, like you had to have chops, and you're a 15-year-old kid doing it too. I mean,
yes,
that's
yeah,
awesome. I wish
yeah,
I could see some of those old tapes of you playing.
me
Um,
too.
and you also musically toured the world, right? Didn't you go on
Yeah,
a
yes.
yeah? So share how this you're getting into the fruition of it, but man, it didn't stop there. It's not like you played a couple cool gigs and have a story or two. This turned into a professional career.
Yes, yes. I'll briefly kind of bring back the doubts and then I'll go forward. So,
Mm,
being at Berklee College of Music, it's like, I don't know, like Harvard Medical School for musicians, especially in the day when I was there. I mean, there were like 600 other drummers from around the world, everyone like better than the next. And the competition was intense, and there I am with my doubts. And I, I was playing in a lot of great kind of groups and sessions and recordings, but in my head, I would hear, dude, you suck.
mm.
Like you're no good. Like, these other guys are way better than you. You're never going to experience your dreams and what you want to do. And it was kind of amazing. The more I got involved and the more accolades and awards that came to me, the louder those doubts got. And again, I'll explain more of that, how that is as we go here. Um, and so, I did therapy at that time. I was involved in yoga, meditation. That was it also at a time when if you said you did yoga, people literally looked at you
Yeah,
like, you're
especially if a guy
insane.
said it. Yeah. So
Yeah,
what are we
like,
talking here? Is this like just put it on a timeline, late
yeah.
'80s, early '90s? Is about where we're at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yes. And through that process, I also, I didn't know how to deal with it. I was just kind of, going forward, but it was intense. The answer didn't come till many years later. To answer your question kind of briefly, when I was at Berkeley, I just had this, I started getting deeply connected into percussion. And so it was like congas and bongos, and then music from Cuba, like Afro-Cuban music, salsa, merengue, Brazilian music, African music, and I just was like absorbing anything like that had rhythm and any
That
all
is
of this
so
stuff.
so fun to play as a percussionist. Like the fact you're saying that, I just want to stop the interview and just have a jam session right now, man.
Yes,
That's a lot
yes.
of fun. Did you also dig like Frank Zappa? There's a lot of cool stuff there too to play along to.
Yeah, a little
Yeah,
bit. Here was the thing. Like in my musical drumming love was Rush and Emerson, Lake and
Rush.
Palmer
Okay.
and Neil Peart and which probably for another time. That's a whole other story. That had an amazing short but powerful communication with him over the at a
Hmm.
point in time.
So that was kind of your musical influence. You named a couple drummers that really
Yes,
were, yeah. Ginger Baker, you
yes,
mentioned Cream,
definitely.
right? Yeah.
Definitely. And then started getting into jazz, especially at Berkeley. And so I just had this feeling like, Mike, I wanted to go to the roots of drumming. So I was like studying into this, like, okay, I'm either going to go to Africa and go to some country there, or I'm going to go to Cuba, or I'm going to go to Brazil. and it just kind of worked out to go to Brazil. It just kind of fit me. Plus, I was really fascinated with the Amazon jungle, Machu Picchu. I started learning Portuguese, and I just got like tropical fever. Like I want to do this, but I was not involved in any program, Mike. I just kind of said, I'm going to Brazil. I'm going to do this. And crazy idea in a way. But the amazing
Wow.
thing, this is kind of like when you get out of your doubts and you can really live and experience your dream and your passion, things open up for you. So, what I mean by this is at the time in Berklee, I'm playing, recording. Like my day to day life was going to school, then after classes, like playing in ensembles, at nighttime, doing concerts at the theater, at Berklee Performance Center. And then after that, going to the recording studios to lay down percussive tracks for like the people who are in that music engineering department. So I was
Mhm.
just like constantly doing stuff. But again, the doubts were still there. So I was playing with a lot of Brazilian musicians, and one of which, those in the world of music might know, Luciana Souza, who is now she's a world-renowned like classical singer and Brazilian singer. She's done some recording with James Taylor and stuff. So she and
Mhm.
I knew each other. We did some performances. I really got into the Brazilian kind of group of people there, and most of the international students that were at Berklee were older at that time, like because even then it was expensive, not like to what it is today. But mostly the international students were like professional, already in the field, people who came to Berklee to improve their studies and things. So one day, like I go to the front desk where like you kind of you sign out, kind of rehearsal rooms for to practice. So I'm doing that. I'm signing out, and the person behind the desk says, "You're Cary, right?" And I was like, "Yeah." And why? He's like, "You want to go to Brazil, right?" Yeah. Well, you can stay at my mom's house. And I'm like, "What?" Because at that time I was close to leaving, but I hadn't secured where am I going to
You
stay. I was like,
needed,
"Okay,
yeah, you needed that next step of
yeah."
tangibly, where am I gonna actually lay my head on
So
a pillow somewhere?
it's kind of like saying when you kind of keep going after your dreams, life supports you at that. I never saw this person before. And he's like, okay, so when you get to Brazil, here are my friends. Reach out to so and so, so and so, so and so. I'm like, okay, awesome. Well, this guy is Julia Duprat. His family are really well known in musicians in Brazil.
Wow.
Julia has received a Grammy Award. Just a beautiful heart, which is what Mike, like that's what I really needed at that time. Going to Brazil opened my heart. And like living around New York City, especially back then, it was hard. It,
Mhm.
it was rough, and like I just was not in touch with my heart at all. So going to Brazil, being in music, playing music. Within 2 weeks, I was on tour, like is like hanging out with my these new friends with a band called Sa and Guarabira, and São Guarabira are they're really well known in Brazil. They're not so much known in America. Very much got into like the culture and the food and all of this.
How long did you professionally play? How long were you in Brazil?
Yeah, I was there for a year, and then I came back to Berkeley, finished up my schooling at Berkeley, and ended up receiving the most outstanding percussionist award at graduation. And at
Holy
graduation was
smokes.
part at graduation, every year they give an honorary degree to two musicians in the field. That year was Dizzy Gillespie, the trumpet player. I got to play in a band with Dizzy Gillespie, and doing this. And then George Martin, the producer for the Beatles, he was the other person. And George said something at graduation that I'll never forget. And it really helps me for this and in my business now and the world of which I'm working on and stuff, which is way out of music in a way. But he said, if you as a musician, if you go into this as the long distance race, not a sprinter, like you love the passion of what you're doing, and you just know like in time things are going to happen for you. and you have this idea of a long distance race, everything's going to be great for you. And it just is turned out that way too.
Something I want to interject real quick in your story. I don't know that we covered this on the show yet. Location and environment is so important. But a lot of times we focus on the person and we focus on how they can change and how they can change within themselves, and kind of almost like not in spite of, but like regardless of what's going on around them, we can try to focus on how we can help ourselves. But it is really important to get yourself into an environment that supports what you're looking to do. And that can be, if it's someone growing up in just the wrong household, it's just been really tough. My last interview, crazy story, but he had really, that was a situation. It's amazing that he even survived through it, is how bad it was. And then, just thinking about later years, if you're in the wrong school, you're hanging around with the wrong group of buddies, they're all doing the wrong thing, you end up kind of being a collective into what your atmosphere, what your friends, and what the 5 closest people to you are. And you just talked about, like, man, I had to get out of New York City. Like, that's a huge scope, but it's a city with a different personality. The way people act and the focus is different. The quick speed of things. The fact that, like, nobody really cares. Like, if you say, hey, our band is one of the top bands in the world, they're like, okay, cool. So is this guy that's playing next is like, he's better than you for 2 years longer than you've been playing or whatever. I'm not saying that really happens, but that kind of mentality of like, so what, is kind of what's going on, or what I feel from my knowledge of that, at least then. I don't know if it's changed now, but you went to somewhere where you could thrive. Your personality worked there, musically it worked there. The percussion you were looking to play, the music already was well accepted, and it's where you can go and use your gifts. And man, I'm so happy to hear that you were able to do it and that it all came to you. And then the other thing I just want to reiterate in that story is the fact that, like you said, it's almost like a bridge. It's always under construction, and it's our life, right? And as we continue to kind of level up and put other pieces of the puzzle together, it starts appearing underneath the bridge. Like the floor keeps growing as you keep going. And the fact that you just were ready for the moment to go to Brazil, and this person that was kind of signing out the room with you knew who you were, talked to you about it, and had this connection to his family. It all was just like the pieces of the puzzle are all out there. We just need to start connecting them. And I feel personally, and you know a lot more about this because you've been studying it longer than I have, but the way that we make that happen is kind of manifesting it, if you will. You can't just pray and hope for the best. But you were playing, you were practicing, you were gigging, you were playing that style of music. You were building kind of the world of scene where that can truly happen. So when somebody like that says, I got an opportunity, your jaw didn't hit the ground going, well, maybe someday give me a call. Here's my business card and I drum. And it's like, okay, let's go. You're ready. And the people I know, been on the show, and friends of mine, and myself included, who've all gotten to great opportunities, isn't just by luck. So there's some luck that plays into it, but it's because you set yourself up. And when the opportunity comes knocking, you got to be ready for it. And I love that. And what we're going to do is take a quick 2-minute time out because there's so much more to your story. I'm glad that we got to hear kind of the lead up of you busting through your shell, kicking the door in, playing drums, going on this cool tour, or getting to see parts of the world where you could thrive. But when we come back from this break, we're going to talk about how you turn that into a business. We'll be right back with Cary Valentine. Podcasting is a great way to engage with your audience and stay consistently relevant. The only problem is you don't have the time or desire to produce your own show. You simply want it done for you. And that's where Social Chameleon comes in. All you need to do is press record and upload the files. We'll handle the rest. From planning, production, post-production, distribution, and digital marketing, we have you covered. We realize that times are tough and funds are tight. And Social Chameleon believes in building supportive business relationships. By clicking on the link in this promo, we'll provide you 7 free podcasting tips to get started, as well as a free 30-minute online consultation. This is the perfect opportunity for entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, industry experts, influencers, and anybody who has a personal brand. With Social Chameleon, we help you build a brand that is out of this world. We're ready and waiting. So what are you waiting for? Click on the link to get started today. Hey guys, it's Mike. I'd like to give a proper shout out to Navigator Bookkeeping. Look, for a long time, I ran my business without really understanding the full financial picture. I used my gut and my bank account balance to make decisions, which led to some poor choices and constant stress over my business's finances. I knew something needed to change. At the beginning of 2021, I made a decision that helped pave a more clear path for my business. I started working with Navigator Bookkeeping. Since then, my bookkeeping has been handled for me. I now understand the full financial story of my business, making important financial decisions much easier now, and it helps me plan for where my business is going. I highly recommend giving Navigator Bookkeeping an opportunity to help your business. Check them out at navigatingyourbooks.com. Again, that's navigatingyourbooks.com. It's time to know the full financial story of your business. All right, we're back in action with Cary Valentine. Guys, remember you can connect with him on social media and also his website, which I have in the show notes for you. It's championYIG.com. That's clickable in the show notes for you. We're going to get into some of the mental and mindset side of Cary's story and how he's really helped people out. He's been a TEDx speaker, an audiobook narrator. He's, certified mental game and relationship coach. So we're going to get into all this part of the story and talk about how he's worked with, PGA level golfers and turn this into his business. You can see it on his shirt again if you're watching on YouTube. Champion Your Inner Game is what he's all about. And so we heard right before the break, kind of you breaking through and getting into life and starting to realize like how you did that for yourself. What I'd love you to do is pick up the story, Cary, and when did you start to see that you can help others and feel that you were the right person to do so?
Great question. I'm going to do my best to keep this a Reader's Digest version because this is a lot of years in the making. But I got to a point where, as I said, the doubts just kept screaming at me. I had learned some different, at those times, some mind techniques um, to help me. But I was hearing, like you stink, as I told you a little bit earlier, you're never going to create the success you're looking for in your business, all these different things. And it got so loud. I was in Idaho at the time, and I just walked out into the desert, and I literally got on my knees. It was one of the darkest times of my life. I just said, I don't know who's in my head, but please, whoever you are, cut it off. I can't do this anymore. And I'll explain to you as best as I can. Something happened that had never happened before, never happened since. And I don't even know exactly how it all happened. But basically, I heard in my head, Cary, did you ever stop to think that all the doubts you've been fighting with all these years have been trying to get your attention to learn to love yourself, accept yourself, and appreciate yourself? When I heard that, Mike, I'm like looking up in the sky, like, what? What? Who the heck is talking here? I mean, it was booming in my head. And I was like, I don't know what's going on, but whoever you are, please continue.
Yeah.
Boy, did it continue, Mike.
Wow.
It was unbelievable. It was a download of information.
Did it happen when you kind of quieted your mind to allow it to happen? Or what did you do? You just kind of going through life and hear the voice, if you will, voice of God kind of in your head?
I was at the lowest of low moments. I was ready to give it all up.
Wow.
And because it just was just nonstop, the negativity in my head at that time, and all the tools that I had at that point, they helped a little bit, but they didn't stop it. So I just was like, I can't do this anymore. And that it happened. Some say maybe that was the moment, maybe my true self started talking to me, maybe, or the divine started talking to me, maybe. It doesn't matter to me who and what it was. What matters is I was downloaded an incredible system of information that I began to start using. At that time, I was like the Pigpen character, like in Peanuts, like all the darkness and mud around his head. That was me, but dark, dirty thoughts.
Mm.
You know, my best day at that point, Mike, was gray. I never
Mhm.
was happy. It was what I wanted, but I
What do you
never
think
felt
drew that
happy.
out, though? I mean, like, you it sounds like you had success, you were able to be your talents are coming out. Was it a not being fulfilled in something? Was there something lacking that you wanted to get? What was the disconnect, do you think?
I've had the doubts in me since I was very, very young. So I know now what this is about, and I'll
Mhm,
share with you. When I was younger, I had this desire, I was 12, 13, right? Like, I want to be a rock and roll drummer. I want to be a rock star. I
mhm,
remember the day that I thought that. That was the first time the doubts got really strong in me. I was so young. I didn't understand what was happening. I didn't have any kind of concept. It was kind of like later, years later, watching Lord of the Rings, and the hobbits, like, are around this big well, and they're playing around, and the bones go down the well, and all of a sudden the drums start beating, dum 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 dum. That was kind of like that in a weird way. So why this? Like, I was always after wanting to be happy. I've always pursued the road less traveled by, not because I had an attitude. I just have always had this spiritual inkling to understand myself, understand the world better. How can I be a better human being? How can I improve myself? That was always there. I just always wanted to be happy. I just was miserable. So it was deep in me, and then it came out. So this process that I started activating, I started using it because I was like, what I was just told, what do I got to lose? I'm miserable right now. But what I noticed soon after I started using these tools, um, there was like little pinholes in the darkness, in the real thickness cloud in my head, that the light started to shine through, and I was like, ooh, I still feel pretty crappy, but I see something changing. So I kept working it and working and working it. It was a years in the process for me refining what is now something I can share with someone in 10, 15 minutes and they get it.
mhm,
But it took me years because it's very sophisticated of learning about the neural nets in the brain and the psychology behind all this. So I'll just kind of quickly go forward here. I really changed. I got to a point where I wasn't miserable anymore, and I started to feel happy for the first time in my life, and I started to feel joy. And hanging around musicians and artists at that time in my life, those were my peeps. We're daunted people generally. I mean, like, as creative as most, musicians, artists, dancers, filmmakers, there's a lot of negative chatter in our heads about our quality of our work and our abilities. So I just naturally started working with musicians and artists and helping them improve their lives. Then I was just one day hanging around with some friends who were golfers, and I said, "Hey guys, by the way, I'm just curious. Do you have any doubts when you're playing golf?" It was like almost the most ridiculous question you can ask
Yeah,
golfers, right?
right.
And it was like their jaws did drop and hit the ground. They're like, "Duh, Cary, of course." So then I started talking to them about how to turn the doubts inside out, how to understand it. And here's really the big thing that I want to kind of demystify the doubts. Most people who deal with doubts, they're hearing the negative, and they're actually believing, most of us, that we are whatever we're hearing in our head. But what the truth is, the doubts are really the inside out, Mike. They're really about telling us about our greatness. They're supporting us. They're our friends. They're not our enemies. They're our friends. They're not our enemies. Man, when I realized that literally was a game changer. And so when I realized too that when I hear you suck, it really meant, dude, you're great. For golfers, golfers that I work with all kinds of athletes now, but I'll give a good example. Golfers that are elite golfers, amateur pros, they all tell me, Cary, yeah, here I am at the 18th hole, doing my pre-shot routine, ready to sink a 3-foot putt for a birdie to win the tournament. And as I'm, doing my pre-shot routine, I hear in my head, you're going to blow this like you've done it 100 times and lose the tournament. Now, it's constant. Like when I deal with athletes day in and day out, and I hear this kind of thing, whether it's golf or basketball, baseball, surfing,
Yeah, fill in the
these are
blank.
these
Could be
things, right?
business as well. Yeah.
Oh, for sure. Totally. Like
Yeah.
that's a ridiculous sales idea. Or you're not going to make that sales
Hmm.
deal with that person or, as an author, speaker, however.
Yeah, there's some imposter syndrome is similar category of what can people can struggle with. But what I want to know real quick, and it sounds like you're about to answer it, is how like when you say I stink, and then you just say no, no, that just means I'm great. Like, are you literally just plugging and popping in a new word? Like, or there has to be more rewiring that happens too. I'm curious on that.
Yes. Oh, for sure. There is a process. So I would take it back one step. So when that golfer is hearing like you're going to blow this putt, what your subconscious is really telling you, you're about to sink this putt and win this championship. And if you're for a professional, your life is about to go on a whole new trajectory when you win at that level, right? That's what's really going on, but it's testing your resolve. It's testing your belief and your confidence in yourself at that moment. Are you really going to step up? This is what makes the difference between good athletes and great, like Michael Jordan, right? Like, give me the ball. Like 2 seconds left in the game. We're down by one. Give me the ball. Yeah, I know he had the worst record for making those shots. But he also has the best record for most wins at winning the last shot of the game. So what the point is here is that of how to turn this around is telling you actually activate the doubts. There's a relationship that, again, these are our sparring partners. These are our friends. These are our things that want to help us. And for most of us, we don't realize, like, when we hear the negative, it's not to blame us, but it's our inner psychology, it's our inner subconscious hearing our own yearning, passion for success and achievement, whether it's in business and sports or art, in music, and then it comes up to test us, because if we don't have the full capacity and belief in ourselves at that moment, we may achieve the success at the moment, but then we become like the one-hit wonders. Like we become the golfer who won, the Masters, and then you never heard of him again. Or a baseball team that, won the World Series, and the next year they floundered. And it's the same guys. Why? Why does that happen? Because, like Kobe Bryant, he would say that each championship he won, it got harder to win the next one. Not so much, Mike, physically, mentally. The doubts got louder and stronger. And the way that I took a deep dive into Kobe and into his psychology and understanding, from what I took away from that, the big way that Kobe dealt with this was action. Get in the gym, keep practicing, practice, practice, practice. I will get better. I will kind of fight these doubts. And to some degree, he overcame them. And some degree, they kept, they were still there, which I never met him, unfortunately. But if they were there, my heart really goes out to that for him and other people, because it's like, dude, it doesn't have to be this way. And at his level, or at any level of professionalism or sports or business, you don't have to have the doubts. They actually leave. And again, there's a process, yes, to this, but that's a cool thing. They no longer harass you any longer when you understand the process and the system that I share with folks.
So it's not that you're saying to eliminate them, from what I understand, because these thoughts are there. Let's just call it energy. There's this energy there. What you're doing is kind of changing the energy, because fire is no good because you can get burned by it, but you can also cook a meal with it. So you're kind of taking a fire that's there, and it's not going to go away, because then you have emptiness, and that's not like, maybe that's not what you're looking to achieve. You're just looking to take it, and what good can we do from it, and confine it. Almost kind of an analogy that randomly came to me, but I think it really works, because you're talking about manipulating it in a way that is going to get you the result you're looking for, where if you like a fire can get out of control, which it did for you when you had that moment where you basically were kind of crashing and burning, no pun intended. So is that kind of what you're saying, is you still need the energy, but you got to shape it differently?
So the doubts my experiences, and with so many different, from people from all over the world, from business folks to music to athletes, the doubts are still going to come until you learn to master this.
Hmm.
And then once you learn to master it, it's like you've passed the test. It's a gateway that you've gone through. When you've learned to what I call neutralize, basically what's happening in the process in the system, you are talking to your subconscious as you go through the process that I share with folks. And the subconscious gets it. It's because it's like it wants to help you, but it's like, hey, I haven't heard you're communicating to me yet.
Mm.
So you can say, get out of here, doubts. Oh, I don't address them, I don't deal with them. I mean, I meet that with a lot of athletes a lot of times, and business people. They're just like, oh yeah, like I just try to throw the doubts under the rug, like as if it doesn't exist. I'm like, good luck, how's that working for you?
Right. Again, it's like that fire. If you misplace it, and you don't see it, but it's doing damage somewhere else.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
And you can run, but you can't hide from this stuff.
Right.
I've worked collaborated with Andy Newberg, who's a neuroscientist, and he, is also looking at the patterns of the brain, and sees about like neurons that wire together, fire together. So if you've been hanging out with negative thoughts about yourself, you're creating a track, figuratively in your
Mhm.
brain, but in your brain, it's actually a real track. And the more you keep aligning to, yeah, I'm no good. Yeah, no one likes me. Yeah, I'll never achieve my creative business ideas. That track gets deeper and deeper and deeper.
It becomes more reality. It's like mud or wet concrete, and if you're moving through it, eventually it's going to dry up, and you've just created this rut, where you could have built another path or road by just changing what you're telling it. You're still going to lay down some kind of foundation, but is it the negative thought or the positive thought? Right, that you're telling yourself.
So what happens when you start working on turning championing your inner game, in that process that I'm sharing about, you literally uproot the roots in your brain. And when you put it into the positive and understand this process that has come to me and I've shared with many folks, literally the roots move out of the negative part of the brain and move into the positive part of the brain. And that takes a number of weeks. At least 4 to 6 weeks at this point. So, it's a process, but then you get there, and then you don't need to go back. It doesn't, it's like a Y in the tracks. Like
Mm.
you now just chosen, instead of going to the left for all the negative, now you're choosing to go to the right. And choice is an important element here.
Yeah, and the best thing, music to my ears, is that it is a choice that we can make. You're basically uprooting and you're putting it in better soil with better light, and now it's going to grow. Wherever here it was in a dark closet, no sunlight, no water, and it was dying, and negative thoughts on it all day long, and you just uprooted that same flower or plant and put it in something that it can thrive in, which was like yourself, literally going to
Yeah.
Brazil, and you were planted yourself in a new environment and you thrived, is the word I used. And I think of that same thing with the flower analogy. Where does confidence come into this whole thing? Is that something, and we're kind of running a little bit low on time, but self-confidence, I listen to a lot of shows that talk about this, where just building consistency and telling yourself you're going to get up on time, you're going to have your breakfast, you're going to make your bed, just these little wins that build up over time. And you continue to say, I'm going to do something, and then you do it. And then all of a sudden, when you tell yourself you're going to hit your goal for the month, you believe it as much as you ever have, because you're proving to yourself that you're reliable. Where like someone who misses out on, they're just kind of all over the place. Some days I definitely feel I'm in that category where it's all thrown together. But you got to kind of like reel it back in, collect yourself, and then start to do those micro wins. Is You're shaking your head, yes, but can you talk about how those two go hand in hand?
For sure. It took me many years to go through this process and realize I was improving, but the actual choice to create confidence in yourself is also a huge element. And the cool thing, it's really simple. There is still more other elements before you get here, but I'm just going to share this because it will be helpful for folks who, anyway. Use this phrase. I call it an anchor. Some call it an affirmation, but it's a literal way that your subconscious is hearing what you're saying. So, for an example, I choose to be successful now. I choose to sink this putt and win this championship now. I choose to have an amazing sales call with this person and the deal's going to go through now. You're hearing me repeat certain specific words. They are really, I found them to be really important. I choose. When you say I choose, your subconscious goes, hey, Joe, put down the poker cards. Something's going on here. Did you hear that? And your subconscious starts listening. What is it you're trying to tell it? Then you tell it, I choose to whatever this is, like to have more confidence now. And then so that's the part. And then when you say now, it engages, it like fires up. Like if any folks are, Star Trek fans of The Next Generation with Captain Picard, when he said, number one, like engage, and they'd shoot, wherever they were going to. It's like saying now does that same thing. It fires up the body.
Yeah, I think if we say like we're going to do something, but we don't put a time on it, it just almost allows us to have it's too loose where we can't really solve for it. We don't know what we're solving for. It could be 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now. But if we say like, I need to make 14 calls in the next 3 days, we can figure that math out. Or 2 days is 7 and 7 or whatever, and our brain starts to solve for it because we can put it on kind of a timeline, right? So the now factor literally cuts the timeline into immediate action, and our bodies know immediate action because we are animals, right? Where we're very reactive beings, and we have our instincts, and that's kind of an instinct is now. Like, hey, if we're being chased by a tiger, that's happening now. Like, you
Yeah,
don't have time to sit
yeah.
there and think about how you're going to escape. You're figuring it out in the moment. And that's a little bit of the entrepreneur in me. I feel like a lot of things are now in action now. So that resonates with me.
Yeah, beautiful. And even if the thing that you're working on, is going to take a little bit of time, you start putting it in, saying now, because your subconscious hears that and then starts to work its way so you can make that manifest in the now
Hmm.
as soon as possible. Whether that's a new job, a new relationship, or achieving, a certain goal that's going to take a few months or even years, you keep putting it in now and you set things up that life starts to come at you and bring that to you sooner than later.
What I
Yeah.
just thought about is like, even if it's a 2 year project has 2 years worth of nows. Every day in that 2 year project, there's things that are happening in the moment. Even if it's a day off, there's something happening now. It's rest and rejuvenation. You don't work 7 days out physically. If you're building a structure, you're not going to, have the same team work 365 days. They would just burn themselves out. So even like resting is an action in the now. What would you like to say directly to the audience right now? They may be kind of in that moment, whether it's as deep as where you literally had to kind of get on your knees and say, like, I need to break through, because you had all these self-doubts. Someone may be struggling right now and they're not sure what the next step looks like. How can they get some clarity and take some actions now? What would you recommend that they do? Maybe the first three things they can do to rewire their situation.
One is recognize it and acknowledge you're having this challenge. That's top note with that. But then realize that any of the thoughts, the negative thoughts you're hearing, again, they're not negative. They're just limited thinking trying to raise you up. So another element here is recognize it and say, "Oh, that's an opinion, not the only opinion." You accept the negative voice. You don't fight it. You don't throw it out. You don't say, I don't believe you. No, it's your friend trying to help you. Think about that. So you accept it and then just say, oh, you're you're an opinion, not the only opinion. And then you start opening the doorway to the positive side, and start moving into that. If anyone's hungry here, anyone thirsty to really, make a shift and really turn things around, I I'm just going to say this. I'm going to open myself up to have a few strategy sessions,
Mm-hmm.
and not many because my life is busy with doing stuff. But I will do that. And you can reach out to me through the website or my email address, Cary at championyig.com, and it's Cary, Cary.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm happy to have a 20-minute conversation with you, complimentary. I just ask of you, like, if this is something you really want, be someone who's ready to take action.
Mm-hmm.
Don't waste my time, don't waste your time, because if this is touching and moving you, you will shift. This will shift your life, and without a doubt.
Brother, that's incredible, man. I appreciate you opening yourself up to the audience. I haven't really had a lot of people do that because of the factor of being busy and having a lot of different things going and kind of different balls in the air. But that's really awesome of you to give a complimentary session and just allow someone to come to you. But yeah, be prepared. Don't just like take 20 minutes with Cary. Like if you're gonna get his time and attention, use it to its max.
Yeah, and also, some people, I'm old school. I'd rather call. So if anyone else, you can call me or text me at 808-346-6652. 808-346-6652. I live with my sneakers on. I'm dedicated and passionate to help people. That's my life. This is where I'm at, because I've seen the transformation in myself, and I seen it in so many walks of life, and it's just so amazing to see the people turn, get those dark stuff out of their head and out of their life, and experience the passion, the joy, the success they've always known was there. And even if you're someone who has success but are still dealing, like the doubts still kind of gnaw at you, what would it be like if they were gone? And how much easier could you create your creations, your life, and enjoy your life if they were gone? So I ask you
Yeah, once you have them
that.
under control. Last thing I want to hit on, and then I'm going to let you run, is thinking about your incredible career as a coach and mindset mentor, and also a musician, right? And you've had a lot of cool moments. When I say this, I want like, what's the first thing that comes to mind? Playing, sitting behind the kit or percussion. What was your favorite moment where you just were like, man, you just were just just dripping in your purpose and you felt so good playing percussion? Is there a moment that comes back where you kind of wish you can relive it again?
I had let go of playing drums and music for a few years because I was really diving deep into my personal discovery. Something inside of me was like, okay, time to get back into the music. One of my favorite musicians and best buddies that I met in Brazil, his name's Tony Ozana. He was living in Germany. I was like, all right, I'm gonna take a trip to Germany and knock on his door and say, dude, it's time for us to do more music together. And I did. So that was like a few months later. He's like, okay, I'm ready to do it. I'm going to come to visit you. I was living in Vermont at that moment. There was a woman singer named Jeannie Carroll, who you guys might look her up. She was when she was younger, she was BB King's girlfriend. She was
Okay.
a blues singer. So he's like, look, we're going to do our show, but I'm going to bring Jeannie and we're going to back her up and we're going to do this show. I was like, okay, great. Where I was living was close to Woodstock, Vermont. They have a theater there, like a 550 seat theater. We're going to do this show. We're going to do one night show. And we're like, okay, we had like 2 weeks to like promote it. Okay. And do all this stuff. Okay. Everything's moving forward. We got some posters out there. They come flying in. We're so busy. I didn't have a chance to really even practice and rehearse with him.
Oh my
Now,
God.
remember, I wasn't playing drums really yet. I just kind of got back into it. So we're being announced on stage. It was about 3/4 full, the audience. It was like, where are all these people coming from? They don't know us, but they came. So they were being announced. I have drumsticks in my hand. I'm on the side of the theater. I'm about to walk on to play this show, and I hear in my head,
No.
Cary, you are gonna blow this. You haven't practiced. You haven't even had a chance to play with tone. You don't even know what tunes we're gonna play. But here is the most amazing thing, Mike. I had become so involved in this interaction with my mind and the doubts at that point. I laughed at it in that moment because I knew exactly what it meant. It meant, Cary, you're about to have an amazing night here if I choose. So what did I
Yes.
do? I said in myself, now I'm walking on stage as this is happening, and I'm about to sit behind the kit, and I say to myself, man, I am gonna rock this tonight. I'm gonna ride Tony like Zorro just behind him. We're just gonna have an amazing night.
Yeah.
What happened? We're at break between our set and performing for Jeannie. People were like coming into the green, like, what are you guys doing? This is crazy. This is amazing. I haven't felt this kind of energy and electricity and amazing music in years. And I was like, wow.
Yeah. You guys were you were one with each other in that moment.
Yeah. And Tony and I, anyway, we're very we play very intuitively.
Yeah, music connection is strong.
Yes.
But did Tony feel like he was lit up too, like when he was in
Oh,
this
definitely.
experience?
Yeah. He felt the energy behind him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just to share, like, he has an album out called Amerindia. People are into that. It was an album I had part involved in that.
Yeah, please
in its
send me this. I
history.
would love to check out do you have
Yeah.
any YouTube videos of you
Oh, yeah.
playing percussion? I'm going to check
Yes.
this out. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Yeah, with me and Tony and him. I mean, like, he's he's really, amongst musicians, he's really well known because he did, Joe Cocker came down and he was like Joe Cocker's like kind of tour manager back in the day, and so many Brazilian and South American musicians. He was part of a group called Raízes de América, and that's another thing that people check out. Just incredible band of musicians from all over South America that were playing positive songs in the time of such challenges. So yeah, just that was just an amazing experience.
I feel like I just was at the show, basically feeling your energy just coming off of that story, man.
Yeah, I had no right being there. I mean, I hadn't practiced for years, but here's the thing.
But you did have a right. You were the perfect person for that gig, man.
Yeah,
you
but
were
what I
supposed
mean
to
is
be there.
I wasn't shedding. I wasn't,
You weren't in shape yet.
I wasn't practicing, but here what I was doing, I was practicing my physical instrument, my mental instrument. So all the chops that I had years of practicing and all that, they were there. But now, for one of the first times in my life then, was just free, like completely free and joyful of being supportive of the music. And it was just amazing. With that, I just want to share one other thing too that I find is really amazing too. That, again, going back to the beginning when my dad would call me Mumbles, there was no way from where I was to where I am now doing this stuff. And Kobe Bryant, as I mentioned earlier, is someone who I've always been fascinated with, because was so open about his mental process. But the thing he really talked about was 1%. Like, get 1% better every time you do whatever you do. For him, it was basketball. And I have the great, amazing honor and really amazing gift to have been able to be the narrator and producer of this audiobook about Kobe. And if I could show it to you, the book is this. It's a beautiful book called Life Lessons from a Legend. It's done by St. Martin's Press. It's a beautiful little book, and just the artwork and things in it, things like this. And it's an easy read, but I tell you, there's things in this book that I never knew about Kobe, and it's deep. Like, I didn't when I was recording it. So here's the physical now. The audio. I did the audio book. Okay. When I was recording it, Mike, I had moments I had to stop. I was just crying. Like, the emotions got to me. I was reading the story. So if you're a Kobe fan, I suggest getting the book or checking out the audiobook. The cool thing about the audiobook, I was able to interview the author, is Nelson Pena. It was a really awesome interview. He talked about his experience with doubts and things writing the book, and his experience like connecting with Kobe and as a writer and all of this. So it was just a wonderful thing, and I'm grateful that now as a series we did a book on also last year on MJ, Michael Jordan, and LeBron.
Mm-hmm.
And this year we're doing Tom Brady and Steph Curry. So
You're picking the best of the best, and that's who we want to learn from. That's awesome. I would love to have you back on the show. I feel we can go so many different ways. We could talk a little bit more about some of the ways that you coach your clients and some of those mindset exercises. We can get a little bit more into like a workshop, if you will. So I'd love to have you
for
back
sure.
on. And I always end every episode with two things. And my audience knows what to do by now if they've been listening in. Be great and be grateful. I'm grateful for you, brother. Thank you so much for your time and being on the show.
Thank you, Mike, for having me. Appreciate it.
I'd like to give a huge shout out to everyone for tuning in, especially those who listen all the way to the end to hear this message. Seriously, I appreciate you, and my guests do as well. Giving a quick reminder to subscribe to this show. It's completely free and will allow you to receive notifications when new episodes are released. If you'd like to provide a tip as a gift, you can do so via patreon.com/mikedUp. It's spelled MIKED up. Patreon.com/mikedUp. You can give as little as $1 per month or as much as you'd like. Every dollar is greatly appreciated and completely unexpected. Appreciate your reviews and your messages coming in on social as well. Keep them coming. Your feedback is valuable and absolutely means the world to me. You can check out more episodes and content at miceduppodcast.com. We're powered by Social Chameleon. You can also follow me on Instagram. That's where I'm the most active, and it's at Mike DiCiccio, MIKEDICIOCCIO. Thank you so much for your continued support. You guys know what to do. Be great and be grateful.